So once your PC is assembled, probably the scariest point is pressing that power button for the first time. And so many times I've done it and the PC is not booted and I've completely freaked out because I thought I've broken something. Most of the time it's just something stupid, like either the power switch on the back of the power supply isn't on, or one of the headers on the motherboard for the actual power switch has been connected properly. So if this happens, don't panic, just go back to your motherboard manual, check that you've connected everything up properly, and also check that all your power connections are in correctly. If they're in correctly, you should also see that there's a light potentially on the motherboard as well. But obviously make sure as you're changing any of the connections that the PC is completely turned off and you're not going to electrocute yourself. So when you first boot up the PC, obviously there's not going to be any operating system installed. So you'll probably be presented with a blank screen that says press any key on the keyboard to initiate like a boot drive. At this point what you're going to want to do is get your Windows 10 software, whether that's on a disk or a USB stick, and get it plugged into the PC. So for our PC and for many modern PCs, obviously there's no internal disk drive anymore. So we had an external disk drive which we used, and I simply just put the disk in for Windows 10, plugged it into the PC, and then once the PC booted up and came up with that option to press any key, just pressed the key and it loaded up the drive and then obviously went into the Windows installation menu. It would be pretty much the same process with a USB stick. You can go into the BIOS early on if you want to and just tweak around a few things, but I'd say initially the only thing you'd want to go and do in the BIOS is check that all of your memory is being recognised in there, and also both your storage drives. If all of that's showing up, then you're pretty much good to go and get Windows installed and then start installing your drivers, etc. So with the Windows installation process, it's a fairly straightforward process. Obviously the key thing is going to be inserting your product key. So you'll be able to find this on the back of your Windows 10 box or whatever you purchased it with. If it's a USB, I think you get a box. If it's a disk, you get like a little slip, but it will have a little bit that you need to scratch off to get your Windows 10 key. So once that's done, obviously you want to go through the instructions on Windows 10. It will ask you to choose a drive to be basically your primary drive where you're going to install the operating system. Obviously for our system we had an M.2 drive and a 1TB hard drive, and we decided that the M.2 drive was going to be our operating system drive as it's the fastest one, and basically would allow us to have pretty fast boot times, and any applications that are installed on that drive will load fairly quickly. So you should see the two drives in this menu, and you just want to make sure you select the drive which is the one you want for your operating system. So ours is obviously a 250GB drive, so we can see it there. Once that's selected, you want to press OK. It will start the installation process. The PC may restart a few times during this, but at this point you can pretty much just go hands off with it, leave it to do its own thing until it goes through the whole getting things ready stage and then comes up with your initial Windows 10 setup options. Once you get to the setup options, it's pretty much just inputting all your preferences for Windows 10. So this covers things like whether it collects your location data, your advertising preferences, and it can all be changed anyway once you've gone through this stage. So if you want, you could just say no to everything and then change it after. One of the key things here to remember though, if you do already have an existing Microsoft account, it's worth signing into this, especially if you've got files kept on OneDrive, because then this can sync your OneDrive files to your new PC without you having to plug in a hard drive on the old PC and transfer stuff, which can take a bit of time. This way you can just sync up through OneDrive and download all your stuff again onto the new PC. So now you'll be on your desktop, and most of the time when you get to this stage, the desktop is going to look kind of weird. Sometimes it can be stretched out and all kinds of resolutions, and normally this is because your display driver hasn't been updated yet. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your display driver installed. Now, the best way to do this, and the way that I've always done it, is just go straight to the website for either NVIDIA or AMD, depending on the GPU you're using, and install the device drivers there for the graphics card you're using. So for us, obviously we're using an RTX 2060 Super, so I went straight to the NVIDIA website, selected that on the drop down boxes, and then installed the game ready drivers for it. This then allowed us to use the full functionality of our monitor, so we were then able to access the higher refresh rate mode, which previously before installing the drivers wasn't available. It also means you're ready for playing games and all that kind of stuff, so it's worth getting done. It's kind of personal preference whether you do this first. I tend to do it first just to get the monitor working as I want it, and then I can start doing the other stuff. So the next part to do is install your other drivers, such as your chipset drivers, audio drivers, and potentially your LAN or Wi-Fi drivers. So most of the time your motherboard will come with a disk that has these drivers on it. You can use this disk. It obviously doesn't always feature the most up-to-date drivers, but it will allow you to get the system started. And if anything's not working initially, obviously that's the best way to do it, especially if your internet's not working. Obviously you want to get your LAN drivers or Wi-Fi drivers installed so you can connect up to the internet. The disk will always normally feature some kind of utility software as well, so you occasionally get like security software, different functionality for storage configurations, all kinds of things. It's pretty much personal preference. I'd say recommend like looking at your motherboard manual at this point, reading through each application, making sure it's something that you need. If it's something you don't need, then maybe don't install it, but at the same time you could just install them all, and then if you don't use them, you don't use them. Kind of depends on how experienced you are with PC building and kind of knowing what these bits of software do. But the most important thing is that you've got your display drivers, your Windows 10 is installed and activated, and then obviously your chipset drivers for your processor. That's going to be a really important thing to make sure your processor is running as efficiently as it can. At this stage for us, I then went in and installed Origin and Steam. Obviously throughout this whole process you want to be monitoring kind of the system, how it sounds, and also how much heat it's producing, just to make sure you've installed your coolers and everything correctly. It's sometimes worth downloading some hardware monitoring software just to watch the temperatures and make sure nothing's overheating at an early stage. You can also download software to test the RAM or stress test the RAM, the graphics card, the CPU, to make sure that it's not going to start crashing under load and there's no underlying issues with any of the hardware that you've got. But that's pretty much it. You can see we've got GTA 5 installed on the PC. It's running really nice and smoothly. As I said, the PC is running pretty cool, so I'm happy with that. And yeah, that's basically how to get the PC set up. Obviously this can vary slightly between different PCs depending on the components you're using. I'd say for more high-end systems, it's definitely going to be more important to do some proper intense testing once it's set up. But for a mid-range PC, I'd say the best thing to do is just get a game installed and see how it runs. Check the temperatures. If the temperatures all look okay and it's running as expected without any stuttering, then you're pretty much good to go. So that is going to wrap up the last episode of our series on how to build a PC. I hope you guys have found this helpful, and if you've had any questions along the way through each of the episodes, then feel free to leave them in the comments below. We've also got the Discord server, which has a tech help channel, so if you've got questions you can jump in there. Equally, we have a Twitch stream which is running 3 days a week from 1 PM to 4 PM. So I'm more than happy to answer questions if you've got them, if you want to jump into the stream and get a live answer. I'll do my best to help you during the stream, but if I can't answer it then and there, I'll make sure I get it noted down and then get back to you afterwards. But yeah, pretty much the purpose of this whole video is to show you how simple PC building can be. Obviously you can run into issues, and if things go wrong it can be stressful, but a lot of the time, as long as you take your time with it, you plan it and you are careful as you do it, it will almost always be successful. Over the last few years I've built a variety of different PCs and moved PCs into different cases and reinstalled Windows and all sorts, and I've never had an issue with hardware failing, touch wood. But yeah, and the key thing to that has just been taking my time and preparing it and planning out the components and asking people. That's a big part of it as well. There's plenty of knowledge out there on the internet, and there's plenty of people that have built their own PCs, so if you're unsure, don't be afraid to ask, and you should be absolutely fine with it. So I'd just like to say a big thank you as well to AMD and Western Digital for sponsoring this video and allowing us to do this PC build. Obviously our processor was a AMD Ryzen 3 3600X, and the storage solution that we used were 2 Western Digital drives. We used a Western Digital Blue M.2 NVMe drive and also a Western Digital 1TB hard drive, which was also from the Blue range. Great options for a mid-range gaming PC. Obviously I mentioned in the other video, Western Digital do have the Black series as well, so the SN750 for example would be a great option if you've got that bit of budget to go a bit higher with your storage solution. But from what we've seen so far, the Blue drive is performing really well. The PC boots up very quickly. There's plenty of storage space there for the games. GTA 5 has been installed onto the hard drive and it's running absolutely fine. So yeah, overall a really good set of components for this build. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please remember to leave a like. And obviously, as I said, if you've got any questions, then feel free to reach out to us on any of our socials or the channels that I mentioned previously. I hope you guys have a good time building your PCs, and it would be great to hear if any of you guys have used this guide to help you in doing the build. But that's going to be it for me today. I'm going to go play some more GTA and put this system through its test. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.